everybody. Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of chatting with Kade Turner directly from Australia.
Hey, how you doing?
Starting from the beginning, Kade, we know that I see with the basses behind you, there's a whole lot of bass stuff that we want to talk to, but as always, I want to go back to the past. How did you get started in music and on bass?
Good question. Possibly a funny story. When I was about 12, I started drumming. I've always been a natural rhythmic-based person. I was always natural on drums. And when I was 16, I got caught at home doing something I shouldn't have been doing with my girlfriend at the time. We weren't actually meant to be home, and we had to get out of the house quickly because my mother came home.
Oh, no.
And when we were in the back, she realised that she'd left her bag in there. I quickly tried to run inside and grab the bag. On the way in, I actually slipped and broke my leg running up some stairs.
Oh, no.
And I broke my shin bone completely in half. Oh, here's my dog. Sorry. He's pretty excited to say hello. He obviously can't hear you, so yeah. From then on, I started playing bass because I was laying down. Yeah, okay. Hey, buddy. From that moment on, I'd picked up a bass because I was laying down for so long in plaster, in a cast, that I just had, 10 to 12 hours a day to learn bass. But it's really funny, when a friend of mine we were jamming with who first showed me when we were 16, he played Take the Power Back by Rage Against the Machine. Okay. And I watched him do that. This was 20 years ago now. I watched him do that, and I was convinced and I believed that I would never be able to do it. I was certain that I would never be able to do it. It blew me away. So since then, I've just been fascinated and hooked, and 20 years later has led me to now.
After you got better, obviously, are you self-taught? Did you pursue studies?
So I left school initially at 17 to study music, but I soon found that I needed money, that I wanted and needed money. So I actually started an apprenticeship after a few months from that. I'd had some teachers in a small country town here in Australia where I grew up. I did have some, sporadic teachers, and actually double bass teachers when I was younger too, which was really cool. I need to get back into that. I would be definitely very messy on it now, let's put it that way, without so many years of practice. When I turned 23, I was lucky enough to meet one of the best, in my opinion, I still think this today, session bassists in Australia, the best and most hardest working session bassist, who has played with every big name. For 10 years on and off with him, I actually was lucky enough to study with him in between his tours and his session work, and he fit me in over that time. So I'm predominantly self-taught, but I have been guided by some really good players that, have just shown me things that I guess I may not have ever have worked out on my own.
Now, in addition to taking classes and your development and your growth as a musician, you've played with bands, you've been working on solo work. I know you're working on starting a channel. You want to tell us about that?
Yes. Where do we start? No, I basically have been in bands for 20 years. And they have amazing upsides to them. They're also, can be very difficult to maintain in original bands. It's actually pretty hard to make money from original bands in Australia. And it is possible, but the first few years are a hard slog, and you are predominantly paying to play your own shows. And that's like a running joke, I guess, with a lot of Australian musicians. So I moved from original bands to wedding and corporate bands. And that was amazing because it's good fun. You put a suit on, you have a nice meal, you have some beers, you get paid, you have a dance. It's great. But I've had a desire, I guess, for years now to basically get or to compile all of my ideas and my passion for playing and tone and for video, and to put that into a channel and a website and a YouTube channel that I can oversee the whole thing, that I can have the final say, that I can basically sign off once I've listened to a mix for 100 times until I'm happy with it, and that just shares and explains my complete passion for tone and playing.
So with your site, is the plan is it educational in nature, or are you trying to share what you're doing? How is that going to work?
So with KadeTurner.com, I have from the start looked at every single detail humanly possible to get every part as perfect as I can. From the graphic design, from the live photos, from the audio recordings, from the videos. And my gosh, has it been a big journey learning video. Oh, there'll be some people that watch this that have a chuckle to that, because it hasn't been easy to obtain the knowledge and video quality that I'm starting to produce now. But all good things take time. So with my site, I wanted and I've created a platform to not only share playing videos, but to also share educational videos through slap and different rhythmic styles. I have started to notate or put on manuscript different parts of different songs for people to do that way. But what I want to achieve, or what I'm planning, or what I've already started to do, is to have videos about tone. Like I've just released a Pantera cover, and that got shared on Bass the World a few days ago, and Gregor has been amazing to deal with through that. So I'm so unbelievably happy there. And I've had some good response and comments globally from that already, and it's only been a few days. But I took the time to make an 8-minute video about the whole signal chain for that song. Okay. Basically how I started listening to Pantera when I think I was about 12. And what I'm passionate about is the final tone, and I want to be able to explain exactly how that's achieved, from the bass, from the strings, from the electronics, the signal chain, how and why I've used the gear, what gear I've used, and how the audio mixing was done. That's a huge passion of mine, to be able to let people know this is how to achieve what I think is good tone.
Got you. Well, and that is certainly the perfect time to go into a little detail about how are you getting your sound? What gear are you playing in? Of course, I can see a Warwick bass to one side and a Wind bass to the other, so feel free to tell us about your gear.
Have we got 3 days? No. So I've always been a fan of active electronics and active basses. My first ever bass was an Ibanez. I can't remember the model number. I saved up for it. I think it was $900 back then, which was quite an amount of money. And I think I must have been working at McDonald's at that time. But when I was 16, I got a 2001 Music Man Sterling 4-string. I still have it today. I've just had it restored. I've done many shows, recordings, covers. I absolutely adore this bass. And since that time, I was playing through a Warwick amp and cab and a Music Man bass. I didn't really have much effects. I think I had a wah-wah pedal that I got because Flea had one, and Flea was cool and I wanted to be cool. Predominantly, I always use active electronics and active basses. So I have a 4 and a 5 string neck through Warwick thumb. I have my Music Man bass. I have my custom Warwick Corvette, which I recorded the Pantera cover with. Hopefully that bass gets famous soon enough. It seems to be a well-appreciated bass globally, let's put it that way. And that was my personal design with Warwick. And the funny thing about getting that bass, I lived in Perth in Western Australia 10 or 12 years ago, and I went into the shop to buy some phosphor bronze acoustic bass strings one day. An hour later, I'd come out with the custom order of that bass. I had no intention of getting it at all, and it's turned out to be one of the basses that I've used most, you know, which is amazing. And I also have, as you can see behind me, a custom Win bass that has been an amazing experience to obtain that. There is quite a long story involved with it, but I was on the wait list for that bass for years. Win basses, or Randy, is one of the best luthiers and humans I've ever known. And we exchanged, I would say, over 1,000 emails, hundreds of phone calls to meticulously get every single detail on that bass right. In November last year, I wanted to meet him and honour the process that we went through so much that I actually flew from Melbourne to LA specifically, one, to see the Deftones live in San Diego, and then 2 days later I worked my way up to Randy's factory, which is just north of LA, a few hours, met him, picked up the bass. That day he took some awesome footage and conversation memories, I guess, from his factory, and then he drove me back to the airport and I flew all the way back to Australia that night. Wow. That's how keen I was to get that bass.
So, amazing instruments. As we follow the sound chain, do you have a choice in strings?
I've always mostly used Ernie Ball Slinky. I've found them awesome. They have actually been awesome because they're pretty bright. They're good for slapping. They're also good for fingerstyle playing as well. But recently, I have moved to DR strings. And the reason I moved to them was because I found the lowrider strings and they can handle drop tuning with tension, which is exactly what I needed for the Pantera cover. And they're stainless steel. And I think stainless steel strings with humbucking or active single coil or dual coil electronics sound amazing. So I've just done a big order of DR high beams. Yeah, so it's predominantly Ernie Ball and DR strings.
Okay. Now, another detail that a lot of musicians don't think about, and I've made a point of asking, is here you've got this amazing bass with these great strings. How do you carry the signal from there? What kind of cables are you using?
So I've always used their Canary or Canair. It's very hard to, it's actually a Japanese cable with Neutrik connectors. And I've used them because they carry signal well and they're actually easy to get custom made here in Melbourne. So that's a good thing because when you're patching different DIs and chains and pedal boards and whatnot, sometimes it can be expensive. You might not want something as long. But in saying that, when I knew that I was flying over to pick up my Win bass, I'd always wanted Tsunami cables. So I got onto a bassist friend of mine in the States, and he hooked me up an order with Keith, and Keith was legendary about that. I got some nice green cables. I love the colour. Yes. And they were actually sent to Randy's Win bass factory. So I took those cables home with the Win bass at the same time, And I have been using them since, and I must say they are awesome.
Very cool. And then amplification-wise?
Yes. I used Warwick for a long time, and in 2013 I had a pretty serious motorbike accident and had 3 major surgeries, and I now have an artificial hip.
Wow.
So the Warwick cab become a little bit too heavy for young Kade to cart around. So I then moved to Mark Bass gear, which are pretty good. They're pretty clear, and I mostly gravitated towards them because of the weight. And I was doing so many shows that I had a 4x10 and a 2x10, which made a 6x10 stack for the weight of a normal 4x10. But recently I've moved back to the heavy cabs, and I've bought a Mesa Boogie M6 carbine amp, which weighs a ton. I've also bought a Mesa Boogie 4x10 cabinet, and that is purely to stay here in the studio to record with and experiment with, to mess around with some tool covers and tones. And I'm not in a hurry to be lifting that in and out of the car or venues anytime soon.
Well, and it's interesting because I think for so many years we just took for granted that the weight of bass amplifiers, and whether it was your classic Ampeg SVT, it was, you were just happy it had wheels on it and you could push it around many hallways. But if you had to face a flight of stairs, you always hoped you could get somebody to help you grab the other end, and
a big strong roadie.
Totally.
Yeah.
So the trend that we have been seeing kind of across the board is cutting down on the weight without sacrificing sound and or power, because it's amazing some of these smaller cabs can handle, a lot of, they'll give you the headroom you're looking for, they'll give you the power capacities, and they're just doing fabulous. So that's just, all part of, I think, the evolution. And the same is true with instruments. From what I can tell, you tend to gravitate towards ones that are not the big, heavy ones. They're kind of, the Ernie Ball Music Man, I got to play around with a Stingray, and it came in at under 8 pounds. So it was very comfortable and fabulous, and it felt great. When I go to like the NAMM show and I pick up some of these instruments, I'm going, oh my gosh, it weighs 13, 14 pounds. I mean, that's like 2 basses.
Yeah.
I'm too old to want to play something that heavy, unless you're sitting down, in which case you go, okay, that's fine. But
it's okay, I can rest it.
Oh man, but like the Thunderbirds, or there's an artificial material out of Amsterdam that it looks like it would be Batman's bass. It's Aureum.
Okay.
The brand name is Aristides, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, I haven't heard.
It's a single piece, and it is milled out of it's got a molecular composition designed to resonate like wood, but it's not wood. And because it is milled, they did all these sharp angles. So if you think of the Batmobile, and we're talking the new Batmobile, not the old TV show, but the one that jumps and leaps and has all the
one with better technology.
Yes, it looks like that, but it's the kind of instrument you only play sitting down. You don't want to be standing up because your back will not be happy with you if you do. So I digress. Away from the weight issues, any other particular things in your sound chain? I believe I saw a dark glass pedal in one of your videos.
Yes, dark glass are awesome. I think the whole bass world can agree that they're just awesome. I don't know how much more I need to say. But I started with the B7K, which was, their, I guess, original pedal that a lot of people use. But for my Pantera cover, I actually used the Dark Glass Alpha Omega, which was amazing because it's based or designed off quite a well-known Australian bass player. He worked with Doug and Dark Glass to create that pedal, so that was kind of cool. And it also had cab sim, like the cabinet simulator, which was the first time I've ever used that. I've used many DIs and recorded in a lot of different studios. So, yeah, but in the shelf there, what do I have? I have a dark glass compressor, and I've actually using most of the time now the Microtubes B7K Ultra, which is similar to, well, it is the B7K, but you get a little bit more mid EQ options. And when you're as fussy and as particular on tone as I am, these things are necessary.
Absolutely. As we're looking ahead, this is all great stuff. I know we've talked about your channel. The best place to find that is KadeTurner.com, right?
Yep. And through my website, there is the About Me, the info. There are blogs which have links to original music. They explain a bit more in depth the recording process, some personal and hilarious backstories to a lot of these covers, because none of this has come easy or smooth. And if I don't laugh about a lot of the process, I think I'll cry.
Yeah.
But there is links to my Facebook and Instagram and YouTube through that website. So social media is amazing for exposure, but I also worked on my website and continuously work on it daily to have like a hub for someone to go to get the whole story. You know, Instagram's amazing, but it's obviously 1 minute small snippet videos. YouTube's great too. And the website just offers a little bit more personal stories and writing through the blog and bass tabs and stuff like that as well. So it's a never-ending process, the website, as anyone knows that has one, but I'm really happy with it. I'm really proud of the branding and I like it. I'm excited every day to think about new videos and blogs and tabs and whatever else I can share with the bass and music world.
There you go. Well, and this comes at a time, while we're talking right now, a lot of the world is staying at home. And so these resources are just a breath of fresh air, where before we might be going out to see something or experience, performances, being able to have in the safety and comfort of our home. And it's the same way I appreciate being able to do a Skype interview, that you and I can be across the planet
in real time.
Have this conversation. Absolutely. So
it's amazing. Can I just add something about the whole COVID? It is so unfortunate for a lot of countries. I think Australia has been reasonably lucky. We've just come down off restrictions. They've eased restrictions. We're allowed 5 people at a gathering now, as opposed to, I think, none. But in saying that, for me personally, I've always worked construction. When I left school and when I left my music studies as a teenager, so I've had, more or less 20 years in construction, which is long, hard hours and hard work. It's what I know. I'm used to it. I'm a fan of hard work, but it also makes it really hard to create and write and be in the headspace to be making videos and sharing and basically living in your passion. Sometimes you don't want to get home after a 12-hour day. The last thing you can think about is picking up a bass. You just think about putting your head on a pillow. So in saying that, COVID, for me, I've taken every advantage possible. Our government has allowed us to access money like superannuation and redundancy and long service leave where we would otherwise not be able to. So I've taken the opportunity with COVID this year to work every single day on my project and to share and to push my passion for bass and for music and for sharing this. And what's been fascinating about COVID, and, not to make it sound amazing because it's not, but the advantages I've found is a lot of well-known musicians are home and they are Skype accessible. So I've had the privilege to study this year with some amazing international artists, and Fridays have become my bass day. So nice. Friday night, I'll do a few hours, a few staggered hours of tuition and discussion and talking with these people because they're on lockdown and they're home. So one amazing thing about this situation now is that, and I've been really lucky to be able to take advantage of that and have Skype for that.
There you go. Well, that puts a very positive spin on it. And you're absolutely right. These are some very challenging times. But I think we're going to have to see the industry evolve. And if nothing else, if it allows people to have some time to be creative and come up with ideas on how they want to move forward, which is usually what we're talking about, is what are your plans for the future? Well, obviously, you're going to invest a lot of time and effort into your site and into your branding. Do you have any other future plans? I know that at least one of the tunes I saw on your YouTube channel was an original. Are you writing music or?
Yes, I am. I always have written original music. When I had a long time off from work with my injury of my hip from 2013 to 2014, I actually wrote an instrumental EP. It's pretty technical and a little bit crazy. And life has been so crazy since then. So in the next few months, I plan to finalise and release that. And future plans with this project are there are goals that I've had set since day one that I won't share. I will share when they happen. Let's put it that way. And they're slowly starting to happen. I wanted to be noticed by certain companies, and that's starting to happen slowly too. I want endorsements off certain companies, and I want to play in certain venues and work with certain musicians. So the intention and plans for this project were to share my passion for tone, audio and music, and to make music my whole life, if not a huge part of it, through these goals that I've got set. So it's a long road. I'm at the start of it, but I have started, and it's amazing. It's actually amazing. It's amazing to be talking with you. I've wanted to do this since I was in hospital in 2013, laying down, looking at Bass Musician Mag videos and interviews, on my laptop in the hospital bed.
Well, we're so thrilled that we were able to have a digital platform that could reach you at your laptop in your hospital bed and people around the world. It's why we do it, because we have a love of our shared instrument and of music and of all of the things we've talked about. Kade, we appreciate you taking time to chat with us. People, make sure you check out Kade Turner at KadeTurner.com. Look forward to more surprises coming down the pike. I know these things will be announced as you see them. So you've seen him here on Bass Musician Magazine.
Thank you very much.